got. But hello everybody and welcome back. This is Not a Pro Gardener here. We are in Zone 6B. It is the 1st of November. We're finally getting back into the swing of doing a few things. We've caught up on a lot of stuff, done some projects we wanted to get done. Now, as if you've seen probably by the thumbnail, this is the EOX review video, and I'm going to talk to you honestly about everything that I've had to deal with, or that I've put up with, or that I just need to get used to yet. I mean, it's kind of a new tool. You got to get used to new tools, and it is definitely a very useful tool. So we're going to be talking about the toolbar, the tools that go on the toolbar. We're going to talk about the EOX itself, kind of user error things as well, and we're going to be not necessarily comparing it to the Haas single wheel hoe and double wheel hoe, but that's kind of the only basis I have to compare it to, you know. So I'm just going to kind of do an overview of everything I know about it, everything that I want to tell you, and everything that you need to know. It's about 40 degrees outside today. Got a little breath going. As you can tell, it's a little chilly, but this is the best time of year to be doing maintenance on things like cleaning up tools that got a little dirt on them, stuff like that. We eventually got to get to that. We just really wanted to get this EOX review video done. First season, we're in the shed. We're gonna kind of show you all this stuff since it's hanging here. We wanted to go in depth on our experience and do an honest review on this product. We did purchase it ourselves. They was nice enough to send me 2 toolbars and this Thiessen tine weeder behind me, and we'll talk about that later. And we're gonna give you a very honest review like stated before. So we did start out with manual wheel hose, as you've probably seen in other videos, me using these things. And I really enjoyed that. But as you see in probably this video, I'll pop up a card here that you can click on and see this video that kind of explains why I thought or come to the conclusion that I needed / wanted this very awesome investment into what could be a market farm. And we'll get into that at the end of the video. If you want to find out about that, I'll probably spill the beans if I do not forget. Now, I can't necessarily review it 100% because everybody has different soil. You know, I have hard clay soil that we've been working on cover cropping. Some people have sandy loam soils. Every implement will shine in different situations. If you've been watching us, you see our situation and you kind of get to see it along the way, but we're just going to kind of recap on a lot of this stuff for our soil, which is heavy clay soil. So you'll get the idea of how it does in this soil, and you can make your decision from there. Now, we have had requests a lot to show this video in particular, and we did test this EOX in pretty much the front yard whenever we just started doing meat rabbits. Instead of getting the tiller out, I just wanted to cultivate just a little bit to get that seed broadcasted in, and it worked really well. I was kind of skeptical at first, but I really wanted to give it a shot to see if I didn't need to use a tiller. And with heavy clay soil, it's kind of a challenge, but it did work. I just ran through the garden with the 3-tine cultivator, and I do not have any videos of this, but I'll try to pop up a new one that we did just to kind of show you what it looks like in the yard. So what we did is we just roughed it up with the cultivator teeth, and we did one pass, pretty much wheel to wheel all the way across the yard. And then we had some chunks pop up because it was a little damp, so we took the Haas discs attachment up here and we ran across there to break that up. And if you've seen in previous videos that I've done that with, that is a good way to not use the tiller and still be able to plant. I've even used my seeder in a method like that in the garden for this okra direct seeding video here if you want to see that. And it did work. They sprouted great. I had a few skips, probably because the chickens come in there, but other than that, I didn't have to get the tiller out, which is huge. I love not having to do that. You know, I'm kind of like minimal till. I really don't want to be digging in the soil too deep or vertically chopping it up. And then we sowed the cover crop, and the cover crop came in all the way across the yard. It was a good forage for the meat rabbits we had. And I didn't have no problems. I was very impressed with it coming up. Now that you could chalk that up to good seed and good moisture for the seeds to get going, because I maybe got in the ground a ½ inch in some spots. It wasn't the whole thing. Like if you tilled it, it'd be a ½ inch across the board. But with just those cultivator teeth, you know, they're like 6 inches or less apart. So it didn't get the whole yard, but it was good enough to get that cover crop nice and thick, which was perfect. It was a good forage for the rabbits, which is what I needed at the time. Now, while we talk about each implement on the EOX here, we're going to be talking about all these implements that I have, which I think is all of the lineup that the Haas offers. So there's one tool that I have that I did not test on it, but we'll get into that later. Now, as you can see, this cultivator tooth here, brand spanking new. These are not the ones that I use. These are just for show until something bad happens to them. And I did have something bad happen to one here pretty soon. I'll pop up that video of that here if you want to see the toughness of these cultivator teeth. It really did a number on it. So let me show you that here. As you can see, the difference here. This is exactly what they look like side by side. Might be kind of hard to pick that up. Yeah, no, you can kind of see it. It's pretty bent out of shape if I line them up side by side. It's kind of hard too, but as you can see, this one got bent pretty far around. It's got a heck of a curve to it. That's them side by side, and this one's looking left pretty hard. So that was a pretty interesting moment. If you want to see that video, I'll pop a card up of that as well. Now, these cultivator teeth. As you can see, this cultivator tooth, it's the Haas lineup tool, which is like every one of these tools except for one, and I'll show you that. And I'll show you these tools in order of me liking them, kind of like ranking them from the best to last. And that's just my personal preference. It has nothing against nobody's equipment or anything. This is just my soil and what worked best and what I enjoyed using the most. Cultivator teeth. I'll pop up a slow-mo of that working in my soil this season. So, the only thing I did to amend my soil was pelletized gypsum. I applied what I needed. And that helps kind of break up that hard clay soil a little bit. I did not broad fork this year. I did during last year's cover crop in one section of the garden to see if it helped at all. And I didn't see a huge difference just yet, but I'm hoping to keep that going maybe this year, and we'll talk about that more at the end. As you can see, the cultivator teeth did a really good job of breaking it up, and I want to attest to timing when cultivating. Now, the best time that I found to cultivate is if you have a heavy rain or something, the next 2 days go by and it's just starting to dry up, You see those little dry cracks in the soil? That is what I found in my soil, the best time to run any of my implements. Now, it works really good, and it breaks it up nice and fluffy as you've seen in the slow-mo, and the cultivator teeth are like my go-to for the first half of the season, and it usually works pretty good, and I keep the same spacing on them, and I usually keep them in that orientation. I do not change it, and that's worked out pretty good for me so far for getting the initial breakup done on the hard clay soil on the top. Because if that dries up, anybody that has hard clay soil knows it's like hard as a rock. And these have worked pretty good. Moisture in the soil is key. You just got to have the right amount for a lot of these implements for it to fluff up like a tiller almost. And that might just be my soil. It might be because I have that pelletized gypsum in there, you know. I don't know everybody's situation. Now, the way I have my garden set up is the rows. So these bust up the middles, the aisles, okay? I don't really like to weed too close to the vegetables with these because they kind of lift up the soil a little bit and their roots can kind of branch out kind of far, and it will kind of tear up some roots, which is fine. They'll be all right. You just got to be real careful because these things can really do some damage. Now, as if I didn't pop it up already, we will pop up a little video of me trying these cultivator teeth in our sod that we got, if you want to call it that. We're just going to do it behind the shed here since I kind of missed the boat on that this year, just to kind of get you an idea of the power and what these will do without any preparation to any soil. This soil behind the shed has not been touched with anything at all. It's just been compacting over the years from me driving equipment over it and stuff like that. All right, so we're going to move on to the tine weeder. Now, as you can see, this thing's a pretty big piece of equipment for a wheel hoe, and it's kind of a special breed all of its own for connecting all this stuff together. I did do a video on that. If you want to see it, I'll pop it up here. You can kind of check it out. Now, There's a lot of pros and cons to a lot of this stuff, and I'm going to talk to you about the pros first. I don't know if you can see that. Let me see if I can get it up real close. Look at all that. That's weeds from this year's season. Still on these tines that I didn't clean off, and I left them on for this reason. The little bitty roots that come out of the soil. Now, this thing is like in a close tie with my favorite implement to go in the garden. And you'll see in the clips coming up, but it's pretty heavy. And as you can see, it's just bolted onto the frame here. And following videos online, how to do this, and just kind of having to figure it out on my own for the spacing that I wanted. It's its own beast, I'll give it that. It is a very nice piece of equipment. It's just, in my opinion, it was made for Tilmor's other two-wheel tractor, and it's kind of a little, it works, but it just seemed like it was trouble getting it mounted on here. So there's a little bit of a learning curve to that, if anybody's wondering about how that worked out. I believe these are the 9-inch set, I think they have 6 and a 9-inch set. I would say it works very, very well. Whoever designed this thing, or if it's been around for a long time, it works really awesome. Pop up some videos here of slow-mos of this going to work in the soil. Remember, we have hard clay soil, so I was really wondering if this was going to work, because I just had my doubts. But I was very impressed. As you can see in the video, I'm lifting it up and trying to show you the other end of the tine after you can see those tines vibrating like they're supposed to be, and it just somehow collects them weeds on them tines, them little thread-like stage weeds. I'll pop up an image of what those look like if you don't know. And this thing like lowered my weed pressure significantly for the first half of the season. Now, the reason I couldn't use it during the middle of the season was 2 reasons. One, because during the hot season, it gets such a hard clay top out there when it dries up. That's not gonna work for me. It's just, there's not enough moisture to get it going. Another reason was because I got sick, and I'm pretty sure I got a video explaining. But this thing here, I think it'll forever have a place out here, because it really, really helped me from having to weed so much. Now, with the Tilmor being so low to the ground, I couldn't really straddle my rows effectively, and it was a really, really hard thing to, like, you can't look down and do it, because I have video of me taking out a few cauliflower transplants, but I did weed straddling them a couple times to see how it would do, and I found it that much easier just to, instead of having a gap in between them, pushing them up side by side and then weeding up as close as I can, because I pushed that toolbar to the left to where the side of my wheel was the side of this tine weeder, and I would just ride along my transplant rows, which was so much easier. And that was a huge, huge game changer for me for lowering my weed pressure in the beginning of the season. And if you're thinking about it, I would make that investment on that tool. Like, it is beautiful, and I love it. So, as you see in the videos of that, you kind of get an idea how it works. Now, one of the problems I had with this was, as you can see, if I pop up an image or a video, your feet get really close, like the handlebar to the eox comes out, your hands go on it, and as you're walking, it's almost like your feet get pretty close to kicking that implement as you're going along at high speed, because you can't do it at low speed. It just doesn't want to work correctly. At the highest speed you can go, if it was back any further, I feel like I would kick it with my feet while I'm walking along with it. And there's ways to do that by walking them to the side of it, by holding the toolbar, the handlebars with one hand, and I've done that and it works. And you get used to it. It took me probably 3 weeks to get used to it, and I finally started getting better. So don't worry about that if you're worried about that. It's just, we'll explain that a little more later. And another good thing about this tool is you can take these individual tines out. As you can probably see in that video I popped up of me putting these together, you can take individual tines out if you don't want to have that so wide. And then you can just weed, 3 inches or whatever you really want to do. I found it very effective just to stay in the pathways and ride as close as you can to your transplant rows, and that worked really, really well for me and knocked down the weed pressure significantly. Okay, so the next most useful tool that I have found is the plow set. Now there are definitely some pros and cons on this, and I will show you videos of that. As you can see, this is the Haas Tools plow set for their wheel hoe, and you can set it in the furrow position or the hilling position. Now it's useful, and I really like the plow set for making a furrow, but burying drip tape or trying to cover the furrow back up with the hiller attached with the plow set in the hiller form, it just, as you can see, I'll pop this video up here of me making the furrow with them, and then I'll show you me trying to cover up the drip tape with the plow set in the hilling positions, and you just have so much trouble. If you're trying to make that furrow as deep as possible, it makes that furrow almost exactly as wide as the inside of that wheelbase on that Tilmor EOX, and it just seems to want to slip in to the furrow when you're going. It took me a long time to rebury the drip lines. It's almost as if I would have just got a rake out there and went manual on it and got it done. It would have been that much more easier. So everything's got its pros and cons here. Making the furrow was awesome, had enough power to do it. There was no complaints there. It did a huge job for me doing that. And in some spots I did not till deep enough, as you might be able to see me slipping around because that hard clay soil just doesn't want to go. But I use a Mantis tiller to till a little, probably 8 to 10 inch swath down there where that furrow is going to be made, and I missed a few spots if you notice that. Now the hilling, that I probably won't do that again. I'll probably just get the rake out there and just bury the drip tape, or do it by hand like I've seen on Lazy Dog Farm. They make that look pretty easy. You know, you take your transplant, you put it right on the emitter, and then bury the drip tape as you go down. That's probably a very efficient way of doing it, and I will be doing that from now on. Another thing is swapping the toolbar out for the hiller attachment. That's why I have 2 sets of the plow set. The next tool here will be the sweeps. Okay, so you see these sweeps, both of them's different. Haas Tools' sweeps, they're very heavy duty, as you can see. That's how thick they are. Many holes to attach them on there. They have a nice sharp blade on them. They worked so good for the hard clay soil. Like when it was hot outside, right before I got sick, I would take these to go down and take care of bigger weeds that I missed, and these would get the job done. It's almost like they went under the soil maybe an inch or so, and they would just uplift chunks of the hard clay soil almost. And that was fine because I really just needed to chop them weeds off, you know, and get them out of there. And that's something that the push-pull hoe could not do with that hard clay soil. These was a good substitution for that. These guys right here did the job, and you can put them in other orientations. Obviously, you could straddle a row, you know, stuff like that. And I really found them to do a good job of my hard clay soil. They took care of those weeds whenever the oscillating hoe could not do it, and they were just tough enough for the job. Now on to the next tool that I got. I got the disc attachment from Haas Tools. Okay, as you can see, I have this disc attachment from the Haas Tools lineup. Talk about wishful thinking. As you can see, it's got these pins on each side to turn the set of discs just at a little angle, just to give you that cut that you might want if you have like a sandy loam soil or a topsoil version or a topsoil out there. That really helps out a lot. I did not use this a whole lot. I only use this for like breaking up big chunks or incorporating broadcast seeds, stuff like that. It really works for that. But in hard clay soil, I mean, it just didn't have the weight on it to dig like it would if it was a real tractor disc. So this is nice, and I have been using it a lot for like cover crops and stuff. But other than that, my main 2 are the cultivator teeth, the tine weeder, the sweeps. So as you can see, this works great in other soils, just not good in hard clay soils. And it's still a valuable piece of equipment for me to not be able to have to get the tiller out there or the rake. I can just go out there, use this to incorporate some seed in, and it doesn't dig down too deep for me. Works really great, especially if you go in front of it with the cultivator teeth, then come back with this. Really good combo for me. Now, if I had any videos of those, hopefully I popped them up. I don't think I do. Some of these I do not have videos on, like this oscillating hoe, as I'll show you. And as you can see, there is a different option for most things. This is the 1 foot, I believe this is the 6. And I got this with the spreader bar bonus, I think on the high arch wheel hoe whenever I got that. And still haven't used these to this day. I haven't really had a need for these. This 1 foot usually did the job on my single wheel hoe at the time. Now, as you can see, this guy's been used quite a bit. Haven't changed the blade. I've sharpened it a couple times. It's a pretty easy change for the blade. Works really, really well. It's got that oscillating action to it. Now, I've tried this and I really, really wanted to like it on there because I loved using this on my single wheel hoe or the double. I really did. I really wanted to like it. So I tried it so many times and it just could not cut into that hard clay soil in the hot season of the garden. It just wouldn't get down in there and break that top layer as good as I wanted it to. So I kind of retired it until maybe I need it for a different type of soil, or, you know, maybe I change my growing practices. Who knows? I mean, we'll see. So we'll talk about that later maybe if you want to check that out at the end of the video. This one, what was my favorite, has kind of, because before I started here on this property, I was somewhere else that this worked so good in, and there was a really, really rich soil over there, and this worked so good for taking care of weeds. I loved it. And it's not for this soil here. You know, that goes to having your own kind of soil and making your own decisions there. So for hard clay soil, this was not a win for me. And also another thing is whenever you're using it on the Tilmor EOX, you don't get that push-pull action. You know, it's oscillating hoe. Whenever you're using it in the EOX, you can't do that. But I might pop up a video of the EOX and why you can't. If you haven't seen it on the plow set video, I'll pop it up again. That video shows me pulling it back. It does not roll backwards very easily. It is a very tough cookie. You go too far forward, there's no reverse on it. You go too far forward on it, there's no reverse on it. It does not want to roll backwards, some kind of gear, or there's something in it that just, it does not want to do that. It'll roll downhill fast, but it does not want to do that. As you can see in the video, that's why it does not get that oscillating action, which is kind of one downfall of that. Okay, so now we're on to the wing sweeps. As you can see, they have different size wing sweeps. As you can see, I've used these. Haven't used these yet. I got these not too long ago. I really like these for not digging too deep. They really did good at maybe getting an inch in the soil, which is kind of what I was looking at. But before I had the sweeps, I used these because I needed something tougher than the oscillating hoe to get in that top layer of that hard clay soil. So I used these guys. And I don't think I have any videos of these because I used them once and then I got the sweeps and started using those. And these guys, they worked good. I imagine these little ones will work better. I'm kind of wanting to use these for like spacing in between plants maybe. These worked really good for not digging too deep in hard clay soil and cutting the tough weeds. You know, you got to have, because those 3-tine cultivators, they just wouldn't want to cut them weeds. They just want to bust up the soil, you know, cultivate. These guys have that cutting action with it as well. So they worked for what I needed till I got the sweeps, and those did a really good job as well. Now these guys have a lot of advantages for moving them around, you know, right spacing. You can have 3 different kinds of tools all on one bar if you really wanted. And it just depends on what your situation is. So these, they're a little bit farther down on the list since I've got that tine weeder and that other stuff, but they still work for, you know, things you might need them for. And as I said, they still work for things you might want to use them for. If you don't have the sweeps, they work good for cutting and cultivating at the same time, which the cultivator teeth did not have that benefit. I believe I talked about all of these now, and now we're going to get to one that I have that does not naturally fit on the Tilmor EOX for a couple reasons. So, okay. So what we have is the dibble wheel. As you can see, the dibble wheel is really tall here, axle to ground level. And that was the reason why it would not attach onto the toolbar. The toolbar stands up about that tall. It just would not mount on the toolbar properly to work. That's the best way I can use to explain that. On my corn transplanting video at the garage plot, this worked really well for that. And unfortunately, there's probably a way to rig something up. On the Tilmor two-wheel tractor, the EOX, there's probably a way to mount it on there, but it just wasn't working for me. And since there's really not that much effort of pushing this into softer dirt just to make that dibble, I just put it on the double wheel hoe. So if you're looking forward to this fitting on there, it does not, unless you rig something up by making your own attachment piece for here to the bar, something of that nature. I'm sure that can be done, so don't fret if you really want to use this on there. I'm sure you can figure something out. All right, so as I kind of went through all the tools that I have for this, if there's some that I missed that I don't have, I haven't got them yet. I don't think I need them, so I probably won't be getting any extra ones, but I am going to be making my own cultivator setup, kind of hinting to that. I'm going to fabricate it myself and put it together. It's going to address a few issues. I'll talk about that later with this cultivator. I think it's going to work good, so we'll kind of hint to that if I get time. So let's go ahead and move on. Okay, so now we're going to get kind of into the meat and potatoes of just the EOX, not the tools. We're going to talk about the toolbar and the EOX itself. It did a very good job. The batteries, I mean, I got the 6 amp hour batteries. Those last a really long time for roughly almost a 2,000 square foot area. I got 2 garden plots that add up to almost that. And they work really, really well for that. I've used them on hard clay soil, and this other soil is kind of an improved hard clay soil. It's not as hard as the one I got in the in-ground garden down by the house. And I have not noticed any performance issues. It does very, very well. I am pretty impressed. Now, one of the things that I've seen people kind of hint at in the comments is if they add air-filled tires. Me personally, I'm sure that would be of some benefit at some point for certain people or things. What I'm using it for, I really like not having to air up the tire. You know, nothing's going to puncture my tire. I don't have any problems with, as you can see in some of the videos, the wheels spin. Now, I think that has something to do with how they made it. They probably did that on purpose because the power this thing has, it would just keep ripping up your soil, because one of the problems I have with it is depth control. Now, there's not much for depth control, and I kind of had a problem with that at first, and I did contact them, talk to them about it, see if they could kind of figure something up with some gauge wheels for me, and I'm sure they're probably working on something like that, but I got kind of an idea for my own set as a cultivator as well. So the performance, it did really good. The issue I have was with the depth control and how you're not used to holding something out like this. This is how you hold the handlebars roughly. These muscles right here, these shoulder muscles, it's really, really hard on you, but you will get used to it. You just got to take your time. You can always take breaks. I took many breaks till I got used to it. And it's a lot different from the manual wheel hoe where you push like that. It's just you're holding some weight up like this the whole time to control your depth. Like with the 3 cultivator teeth, I've had it dig down to roughly 3 inches, and it would almost bog down a little bit because it was really just trying to dig deeper if I just let it go. And you would have to keep it up, otherwise it would just want to keep digging. So it has the power. I just don't want to dig that deep, and I really would like something to control the depth on it. So I'm hoping this cultivator I got going in the works will address that issue. Now, another part I'm going to talk about here as a con is the price. Now, there's pros and cons to that. I have not had to purchase any gas or fuel, anything of that nature, for this machine. An electric powered wheel hoe, which is one of the things I really, really liked about this, and not having to use gas. That's really awesome. Lowers emissions on your farm. You know, you don't have to deal with the fumes, you don't have to deal with the gas cans, you don't have to make a run, you just have your batteries charging overnight. They can just come out and grab them and get back to work in the field or whatever you got going on. And the flexibility of using 5 amp hour batteries or 4 amp hour batteries on it as well. You know, you don't have to have the 6 amps, but that's just what I got because I wanted the most power. Mainly because I was worried about hard clay soil and the performance of it, but it did. I'd give it probably an 8.5 to 9 for the power. I mean, nothing's perfect, but I didn't expect it to dig down that deep and want to keep going in hard clay soil. I was pretty impressed with that. And another thing, when it was digging down, the reason I think they designed the wheels the way they did was because you can see them spinning, they slip. That's why I'm thinking it just won't damage anything, won't hurt nothing, it doesn't overload nothing, it slips and kind of lets the wheels turn. Probably to prevent some kind of damage, I think. And I'm not worried about that at all. It does really good. I really think they did a good job on this. Now, the power, like I'm saying, it has all the power I need. I think I've done 3 days of cultivating with it over 2 weeks, 1 to 2 weeks. I think I cultivated 3 times both plots. It has not died on me yet. And I think that's pretty good considering what's going on with it. It's electric and it's got the power for hard clay soil, so it should have the power for any other soil that you got. Now the weight. I'll pop up an image here of how much this thing weighs. I can't quite recall. I can lift it up, put it in the back of the truck. It is a little heavy. So as I was saying, the weight of this EOX, I believe it's like 60 or something pounds, 60 or 90, something like that. I can handle it, I can pick it up. It's not too heavy for me. I can handle it by myself, you know, it's pretty compact. It's a lot smaller than I thought it was gonna be. Watching the videos they had online, it looked a lot bigger than what it was when it arrived here at the house. I was expecting it to be much larger than what it was, and it just seemed to be a lot smaller, so I was really, really happy about that. Now the handling, I'll definitely pop up some videos on this over here, so we'll start talking about handling of it, driving it, and it moving backwards. I'll kind of put it up on a hill to kind of show you what I'm trying to get across here. It does not want to move backwards very well. There's no reverse, nothing like that. And the gear system like makes it go turtle speed. Like as you can see on the hill, it rolling backwards like that. It just does not want to go. And handling, that's an issue. If you mess up and go too far one way into your road, you got to drag it back. As you've seen in other videos like this, you got to drag it back and fight it. And for some people, that's just kind of getting used to driving it, really. That's just part of the game on that part. And handling, like driving full speed, it's pretty quick. It's full walking speed for me, and sometimes when I first started, I felt like I had to keep up with it. It was going so fast. So turn that speed down till you get used to it, and it'll help, you know. Now another thing is if you're like me and you're gardening on a slope, I'm cultivating along, and you have that natural reaction just to lift it up out of the ground so you can make your turn. My advice is to leave your cultivator in the ground and let it come to a stop before you lift it up out of the ground, because you got all that weight going that fast. But lifting it up and turning it like that was not ideal. You want to let that cultivator bring that machine almost to your complete stop before you want to pick it out of there and make your turn. You got plenty of time. There's no reason to rush it, especially if you're gardening on a slope like me. Now another part is going downhill. Like if I'm driving downhill, it wants to coast. And all that weight going down the hill like that pretty quick, it could be a problem for somebody that doesn't have a good grip on it. So you just let that cultivator teeth dig in the ground just a little bit to kind of slow it down. That'll help you keep your hands on it. And it should naturally drop its cultivators down in the ground anyway, as long as you have one in there. So that's my experience on the handling. Once you get used to it and you get used to going fast, you can get a lot of work done. Bam, bam, bam. You can knock out your plots, and then you got extra time to do other things. Okay, now we're going to give it another point here of storability. This thing folds up. If you haven't, if they cover that in their videos, I'm not sure, but I really love that it like folds up and I can store it. I keep it under my workbench. I'll show you a clip of that. I'll pop that up. You can kind of see that it's very, very compact. You can lift it up if you have a lot of experience lifting up weight on your own that's a little heavier than normal. It's a little hard at first, but once you get used to it, it's not so bad. Like if you need to transport it to the field, you know, it's possible. And another benefit to it not wanting to roll backwards is you can push it all the way up to the front of the bed. strap it down, and them gears, I guess, in it will just keep it from wanting to roll around. This machine, I think, is very versatile. You can use it in like a high tunnel where you don't want to have fumes, or you don't want to have that big BCS in there or something like that. You could use that to terminate something or rework some soil, add some compost, something like that. It's very compact, and I think that would be possible for most people to do. I used it to break ground. I'm pretty sure it's not made to do that. It's kind of one of the testing things I wanted to do, and I did do it a couple times, and it worked really, really well. No tiller needed. I did that, and I used my seeder, which I popped up that video of that for the okra video. I'm not having any troubles with that. Like, it's versatile to where I don't have to use a tiller, and I can use it to break ground pretty much. Not real deep, but maybe an inch or so deep. I can use it to break ground for some things, and I can also use it for and even if you have better soil, like better than this hard clay soil I got, you could really use it to break up some topsoil and get it fluffy, I'm sure, with the right amount of moisture in it. So you got to keep an eye on the moisture. Now, using it on minimal till situations, the sweeps would probably be best with a gauge wheel system, or like the plans that I got later on. I just want to hint to it. I don't want to give anything away, but I got an idea for this cultivating setup that I'm going to kind of fabricate all on my own and devise this tool for the toolbar. And I'm hoping that solves the gauge wheel problem that I got for controlling my depth, because I really had an issue with that at first. And then I really like using the cultivator teeth, but I feel like there's something more that could be there to aid the cultivator teeth for the gauge wheel and for breaking up those bigger chunks. So I got a plan for that. Stay tuned. Hopefully I can get that video done during November, December. Hopefully I can get this thing fabricated and put together. I might not be able to test it because the ground might be frozen, but I got ideas to get it whipped up, so I might show you it ahead of time anyway. I would say it's versatile. I can use it in a high tunnel. I can use it in the in-ground garden outside. You can use it at home gardens. I'm sure you could use it in market gardens. I have no doubt that you can use it to break ground, to direct seed at least an inch to half an inch, which pretty much that covers everything that I need to seed with my seeder. And most people kind of go to the compost route now, and kind of sourcing compost is kind of the most difficult part of that. And so one of the big things, and I'll pop up a video of this, it's made in the USA. That is a huge one for me as well as for it is for most people, I'm sure. But then again, the price kind of deters some people. But I think not having to buy the fuel all year for the tiller or anything like that, I can weigh those pros and cons. Now, that's my experience on it. Okay, so we're going to kind of talk about the toolbar now. I had a couple issues with that. And there was one issue that I did not have, but they did contact me about this EOX, which I'm sure they fixed now with every one of the other machines. At some point, one of the wires got crossed on the battery terminal, and I had to go in and actually remove one of those for the battery terminal, I believe. And they sent me the instructions, and they offered to stay on the phone and help me with it, told me all the tools I would need. They had all that stuff laid out for me, and I got that taken care of. But I didn't have the problem, me personally, but they said other people was having the problem with it doing some kind of bog down or something like that. I did get that taken care of. Still haven't seen that issue, which is good. Another which I would attest to their customer service being really nice, because they called me and told me what was going on. You know, they handled it. They was pretty good with their customer service. I give them a 9.5 to 10. That's one of the big ones for me, is being able to call the person, talk to them, and they will listen to you. You know, you don't have a machine to go through. So another one of the cons I have is the toolbar, and I'll kind of show you on this toolbar. It's going to be kind of hard to see, but okay. So as you can see, these little squares, one there, there's one right here in the middle of this thing as well. Those little squares there, I have an issue with those. Now, it might have just been my toolbars, but them squares were just a little bit too small. So as you can see, this cultivator teeth, they have these, so as you can see, they have these little notches right here. Hold on. They have these little notches here and here, down here. See them? Those little notches is what holds them in place from turning left and right in your toolbar. So they keep them from turning left and right. Hold on, I got the sun on me. So those are what keep the toolbar from the tool from turning left to right in the toolbar for these cultivator teeth. Now that little square, those little notches will not fit in there. I don't know what the deal with that was. I don't know if it was just mine that I got, but I just took a little file, filed down this little notch on both of them so they would fit in there, and just one side fit in there. That's why I like to have my setup with 3 cultivator teeth, 1 in the middle, 2 on the sides. And I had to do that just to get that one to fit in there right. Otherwise it was kind of crooked, and it just, I guess OCD here, didn't want to let that slide. So I ended up fixing that where they would fit in there and sit the correct way. And the toolbar, just, there was another issue I had with that. And there was another issue I had with the toolbar. As you can see here, I have these gussets in here. It's kind of hard to tell. Just got some 1/8 of an inch gussets in there. And you can probably guess why those are in there. Obviously, it was bending right here. Just having the 3-tine cultivators in there and the weight of that machine leaning back on this toolbar, all that weight right here after probably 5 times cultivating the whole plot, which was me practicing at the beginning of the year, they seemed to bend. It wasn't a lot, but it was noticeable, and I did not really like that. I was kind of like concerned, you know. I mean, I kind of had a feeling these toolbars wasn't thick enough. Regardless, they was not thick enough to handle the weight of that repetitive picking it up and setting it back down on them, which I wasn't sure if it was just me doing that or what, but I think they said when I contacted them that other people had this issue or something like that, and he just pretty much suggested that I could weld those gussets in there. And that's what I was going to do anyway, mainly because I didn't want to throw away a toolbar. You know, I was going to use them. Some people are probably not going to like that. Hopefully they fix that issue by now and nobody else has to deal with that, but it's something that I did. Maybe it was just some kinks that needed to be worked out in the beginning stages that just didn't get done or something. Maybe they didn't catch it, but I have a welding background. I am not an amazing welder, but I know how to weld, and I can handle that and then some. So I ended up taking care of it and got that done. There's a little hole in between those gussets that another bolt can go through on the back of the E-ox that kind of keeps that bar from all the play that it has in it. I want to keep the play in it, but I also want to have that option to use that bolt. That's why I didn't put one gusset in the middle of it. And I think that also keeps it from twisting, putting both of them in like I did. Now, I don't think I've seen any more bending in the toolbar just yet, so I think they just need to make that toolbar a little bit thicker. You know, I think that's probably what should have been done. But I'm sure that saves some weight. But then again, they should probably just make that a little bit thicker, keep it from doing that, and then you wouldn't have that problem. Now, that's just another issue I had that I had to fix. And that was kind of like, man, it's like the beginning of the season. Getting all this stuff transplanted and planted, and now I got to fix it. And overall, I'd give this whole machine, I think I would give it probably an 8.5 to an 8. It's a really awesome machine. Just those cons that I have that haven't been solved yet are the only reason it's not higher. Now, most people are probably not going to complain about these things, but maybe it's just that hard clay soil that kind of did it to it, you know. Got that toolbar bending. I'm sure it could have been a number of factors, but it should be an easy fix. Make the toolbar a little thicker or put gussets in it at the plant, wherever you get it made, stuff like that. Now, other than that, I am super happy with this. Another benefit, before I forget, is the whole family could use it. I got my kids out there using it. You know, my son, he can go out there and cultivate with it. He kind of has fun with it. I put it in low and let him do it, you know, and he really enjoys that, and so does my daughter. So the family can use it. That's a huge benefit. All they got to do is let off that thumb throttle and let them teeth sink into the ground, and that will stop it for them. They don't have to worry about it. You know, if you just want to let them go and cultivate a plot for yourself. All in all, I'm not regretting this purchase. I'm really happy with this product. I'm really happy with this purchase that I made, and we're hoping to use it for many years to come. I really hope this thing lasts a long time. It is a wonderful tool and it is very versatile and has a lot of advantages. Now, hopefully with this insight, you can tell if this tool might be for you or not for you. I would imagine it'd be really good for small scale, which is kind of what we are, and I'm pretty happy with it. Now, if there's anything that I missed or you guys want to know about or anything that you want to ask, leave it in the comments below. I'd love to answer them, tell you my experience about it if I forgot something, and if you're wanting to see some more videos about this stuff, I would love to put it out there. Just leave it in the comments below. Just tell me what you think. Do you think it was worth it? Now, for you waiting at the end of this video, if you waited long enough to find out what I was hinting at, earlier, I'm planning on switching up some garden stuff going on here. We're going to switch up our style on how we garden, and we're going to be growing for market next year, which is very, very exciting. We're in the process of getting a lot of things done and getting all this stuff set up so we can actually grow food to sell at the market for people in our local area. One of the dreams we have, mainly me, is to become a local farmer and sell your produce to people. Now, leave in the comments below if you sell to markets and what do you sell, what's your biggest seller, or any tips you might have to sell at market. I would love to hear about them. Help me out. This is Not a Pro Gardener here. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you next time out there in the garden. Have a great day.